Hello and welcome to my first tutorial here on YouTube. Today I'm going to show you how I painted this seascape. First, I need to say that all the materials that I'll be using are listed in the description of this video. The brush that I'm grabbing first is this flat brush, and with her I'm going to start painting the sky. For this shade, I've mixed a lot of Cerulean blue, a bit of Phthalo blue, a bit of French Ultramarine, and a tiny bit of Cadmium red and Titanium white. In that mixture, I added a drop of poppy seed oil. This shade needs to be our darkest sky shade, so don't accidentally put too much white in it. When I'm finished with my first area of the sky, I'm adding a bit more of titanium white into my previous mixture, and I'm continuing the painting process. And one thing that is important here, when you're painting in only one layer, you shouldn't drag your paints left and right on the canvas. If you're doing that, you won't have the color that's as opaque as this. You should actually press the paint into the canvas so you're left with a better result. Into my previous shade, I'm adding more titanium white. The painting process is the same. From this point, I'm just doing the same thing over and over, just adding more and more titanium white into my previous mixture, and I'm continuing to paint the sky in layers like this. As I'm getting closer to the ground, I want my color to become a bit more muted. So I'm going to get the next color that I need by adding more titanium white into my previous shade, but I'm also adding a bit of cadmium red. And I'm continuing the painting process with my new shade. Adding more white and painting the next part. A bit more of cadmium red and more of titanium white. I'm picking up new, clean flat brush and I'm coating it with my lightest sky shade and blending my sky colors from the lightest area to the darkest one, but being careful not to touch the darkest shade yet. Now I'm switching to my makeup brush, which I use for getting the smoothest gradients between colors. And with her, I'm going to start blending my darkest shade into the rest of the sky. Be careful not to put too much pressure on the brush here, because we don't want to move that paint around too much. Now when I'm finished with blending, I'm grabbing more of titanium white and I'm mixing it into my previous shade. And with my new clean flat brush, I'm going to start painting the clouds. Because we're working wet on wet here, be careful not to move the paint around too much. It would be ideal if you just pressed the new cloud paint into the sky paint. That way, we're making sure not to mix those colors together. Once I'm finished with that, I'm grabbing my watercolor brush, which I'll use for refining the edges of the clouds like this. just dabbing the brush on the edges of the paint that I just painted. And make sure to wipe the paint from your watercolor brush on a paper towel regularly. I'll also add some new small clouds or refine the clouds that I already painted if I feel that I need to. Now, with my smaller clean watercolor brush, I'm just going to perfect those clouds a bit more. I'm again using my makeup brush for blending everything out even more. And here I'm being really gentle and I'm barely putting any pressure on the brush. With that flat brush with whom I painted the clouds, from which I wiped all the paint that I could, I'm starting to paint the horizon line. For this shade, I mixed a lot of indigo and a bit of phthalo blue and turquoise. For the next part, I just added more of turquoise and a bit more titanium white into my previous shade, and I'm continuing the painting process. From this point on, I'll just be adding more and more of greenish turquoise and painting the area beneath. As we're getting closer to the shore, I want my colors to be a bit more muted, so I'm adding, besides titanium white, a bit of that darkest sea shade into my previous mixture. More dark shade and more titanium white. I'm just lightly blending those colors into each other with that same brush I used. Now I'm mixing my highlight color by adding a lot of greenish turquoise and titanium white into our previous shade. And I'm going to paint those highlights with this small filbert brush. With my clean flat brush, I'm just going to smooth out those highlights a bit by lightly dabbing this brush on them. refining some of those highlights and smoothing them out again. Now I'm grabbing a bit of turquoise and a bit of our darkest sea shade, and I'm mixing them together and using this color for painting the shadow of the waves or some stones and pebbles that might be visible under the water. Grabbing my highlight color again and redefining some highlights. Blending them lightly with my makeup brush. Now I'm adding even more white into my highlight color until I get a color like this, and with that I'm going to paint the parts where I think sunlight is reflecting the most of the water surface. Again, I'm blending everything out with my makeup brush, and be careful not to overblend everything here. With new clean flat brush, I'm going to smooth out a horizon line a bit like this. Make sure that you're wiping the paint off of your brush after every stroke. We don't want to mix this dark color into our almost white sky color. Just refining the horizon line a bit. Grabbing more turquoise and greenish turquoise, mixing them together and starting to paint those small highlights in the back. From this point on, I'm just refining the highlights and blending them out until I'm satisfied with the painting. And we came to the end of this tutorial. I hope that you learned something new, and I hope that I was able to provide you with some useful information. If you would like to see the full 40-minute version of this tutorial, where I provide you with all the information that you'll need and guide you through the entire painting process, go and visit my Patreon page. There I also have more real-time tutorials for beginner oil painters. The link to it is in the description of this video. Until next time, bye!